Hey, everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
and we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. And for this episode, we're going to go back to our regular roundtable format. We're also going to be talking a little bit about something that hit HBO Max, or as Steve always prefers to call it, Hobo Max, and that's the Snyder cut of Justice League, which is titled Zack Snyder's Justice League. And we do have like a little bit of news, I think, because the development with Marvel and Random House that happened between our two episodes, so we probably should talk a little bit about that. So we got enough on the table, and Brian, we're very happy to have you back. I know this might be your last episode for a little while because of work considerations.
I am going to do my best, even if I don't look as beautiful as I do currently. If I can chime in from the road, I will do my best. But yeah, I can't promise anything right now.
But it certainly has been a real thrill for a year at this point to have you around. So
appreciate that.
We've been very happy with that.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, let me do happy clappy. I like this. We're all smiling today. It was like a good day or a good week so far. Yeah,
it's April Fool's Day, so I'm just happy as a fool.
I gotta say, I didn't see any news that was like, I didn't see anything.
I think people tread lightly today.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, I mean the one area where there's always going to be some kind of April Fool's stuff would be video games, the world of video games, and there were a couple strange announcements this time around. One of them was a Remedy who's a studio who did Control, which is an amazing game, wonderful, playable on every platform at this point.
I've been really enjoying Control. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, it's gorgeous, it's fun, the story's amazing, the acting's great. Anyway, they decided to go back into their archives and show the original 1996 PlayStation 1 version of Control. Which somebody went and recreated, sort of a 32-bit version of the game, which was hilarious, but obviously fake. And then I think Minecraft did something about Minecraft Plus or something. Go back to the, to the basics and your favorite game about dirt. But other than that, I really haven't seen anything. No,
evidently.
No stuff.
There was some other bad news, not fake news, unfortunately, about certain intellectual properties that we care about in movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, one, who cares? But the other one, I think, was a concern.
One. Okay. Yeah. Of the two, yes.
Yeah. They did announce today, Warner Brothers, that they are not moving forward with New Gods or with The Trench. And it's a shame. Yeah. And, as I told these folks, I guess Naomi killed New Gods. Might be. I don't know. I'm glad she's still working with them. I am very glad that Anna DuVernay is still working with them.
I hope that's not what it was. But our friend David Toby, we agree. It's very sad news. I know for fans of the New God, or the Miracle, Mr. Miracle, Miracle Man series from Tom King and Mitch Gerads. Like I was really looking forward to something from them, or something in the spirit of that work, especially after WandaVision so capitalized on Tom King's work for Marvel.
So it was interesting in the tweets and some of the communications that went around. I didn't see a mention of Orion. It looked like it was Miracle and Barda centric.
Well, I mean, the series had a little bit of Orion, but he wasn't like super prominent in it. So
but I'm just saying, for a New Gods film, somebody who's been with it for 40 years, that's still the main character I associate. Apart from
if you're doing a full up New Gods property from scratch and then build to whatever, then you're right. That is sort of a but it will know. I mean, I have a feeling that something will come of the New Gods eventually. It's one of my favorite Kirby properties for DC. I love the New Gods, and we've talked about it on the show before. I love it so much. before even Mitch came on and Tom King, you know, and revitalized it. It's so good. There's so much material there, but it's so hard to adapt. You know, I feel like Tom King did the best you could. Yeah.
And also, you know, between Thanos and also very specifically Star Wars, there's tropes there that I think people who are not as attuned with the history of the New Gods franchise that would think that this was pirating off of those, where it's actually the reverse.
Well, it's the same concern about Dune coming up. People are worried that with the new Dune finally being released, that people are going to be like, oh, you're copying Star Wars or you're copying whatever else. And it's like, no, it's the opposite. But, you know, what are you going to do?
Well, I mean, we'll see that with Foundation as well. I mean, Foundation sort of like the grandfather of a lot of those, you know, science fiction tropes and films. I mean, books, everything sort of bleeds out of Asimov. So, I mean, you're going to see a whole bunch of that, and I think it's actually pretty good for people who aren't familiar with those properties to actually get to see them, because then they're going to start asking those questions, or they're going to have that friend who's like, actually, who's going to tell, you know, basically let them know this is inspired by this, but this actually was the inspiration for something else. And, you know, everybody's got one of those friends.
I would really consider. I'm so excited about Foundation because that's one of my favorite series from Asimov. I would even be, and not being an Apple person, I would be tempted to get the Apple whatever service to watch it. You know.
Yeah, just going with that title. Did either of you read the Boom series, The Foundation? This was something like maybe 10, 15 years ago. It has nothing to do with Asimov.
No.
The concept is that, and this was actually true, Nostradamus was incredibly wealthy. And what he did was he set a foundation up in secret so that the horrible events that would happen would be curtailed by people's actions. And some of them were fairly harsh, like they have to let a plane explode, but take one guy off, lock him in the bathroom at the airport. The original script apparently was like really wild. Like one of the people that had to die was Ian Curtis of Joy Division because of the fascistic elements of Joy Division, that this would have inspired some people that misread messages, and that would have been an extreme right wing. And apparently they took that out because it was overloaded. But the concept was that this foundation still exists and these operatives still exist, and they, you know, are at work trying to fix the world before problems happen. And
which is
it's a really interesting book. And apparently, like this is a property that's been in development hell for like 15 years. Because you remember, you know, and it still happens. There's a lot of comic books by writers you never heard of that are basically failed film pitches. In the independent world, and I think this was like at the start of this, and this was a good one. It's called The Foundation. If you can ever find it, I know it was collected, but I imagine the single issues are pretty easy to find because it wasn't a success, and by our standards. But whenever I hear The Foundation, that's the thing I always think about.
Well, it's interesting because the plot sounds like it's in conversation, at least with Asimov's Foundation, but from a very different perspective. So
much more modern.
The 2-cent version of what the Foundation was for was essentially they foresaw everything happening in a certain way, not necessarily prediction, but just sort of like mathematical. This is what's going to happen, so we're going to set up something to restart civilization after everything goes to shit, which it's going to go because we've been able to predict all these things.
Harry Seldon. And he was basically, I forgot which famous economist said this, but one of the, like, maybe it was the name will come to me later. Famous economist is like, who is it? Greenspan. It was Greenspan. Harry Seldon was his inspiration for becoming an economist because to him, psychohistory, I believe, was what is basically kind of like a sort of a version of economics that sort of gives you that prognostication sort of thing. So I think that is it is so bizarrely integrated into like a lot of people a little older maybe and at our age to their reading. But we had a few comments here. David Toby, of course, from earlier. Also, congratulations, David Tobey's Nottingham has sold out. I believe both, was it first and second printing? At least first, I know that. And I couldn't find it at my LCS, which I finally went to. But yeah, they didn't have it. I was sad. But so yeah, I'm skeptical that Naomi is a CW show to kill a feature.
Depends how much of a time it's taken her up. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah. And then
I mean, it could have been the trade-off.
Yeah.
Our
Hello,
buddy Jim.
James.
Yep. Hey, James. Good to see you. Good evening. And yes, David is actually we'll give you that in addition to the koala of comics. You are the actually. I could rail endlessly about failed film pitches being comics. Yeah, I think a lot of folks could. And then I guess James,
and some, I don't want to slam that. Some of them are really good. It was a series called The Roberts from Image, which was the Boston Strangler and the Zodiac Killer at the same nursing home. Which you think is like a one joke thing, but it's pretty potent.
Failed doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they didn't make it. That doesn't mean So
I mean,
I guess
Dark Matter. If anybody's ever read the original Dark Horse Dark Matter series, it was just 5 issues. Didn't really get much further than that, but those 5 issues became essentially the first couple episodes of a 3-year running sci-fi series. That's actually, one of my favorite sci-fi series that they canceled. But great show. The comic was okay, and eventually, they were able to make it into something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what David wants to slam, but evidently he wants to slam that.
Oh, okay.
He wants to slam it hard, whatever it is.
And also, along like what you said, Steve, I mean, there's a good number of film and TV projects that were better than their comic sources.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Men in Black and The Middleman immediately come to mind.
Yeah.
And then you got something that becomes crap. And I think this is where there's a lot of that fear sometimes. R.I.P.D., for example, was a much better comic book and ended up being just a terrible movie.
I guess Killjoys was the better show.
Killjoys was the better show, and it got 2 extra years. So yes, and they got to finish it out. It was a great, completed arc. I loved it.
I bailed on issue 2.
Oh,
I was just not feeling it.
Was that Gerard Way, or was that something? Okay.
No. The Fabulous Killjoys is Gerard Way. Oh. Killjoys was a sci-fi series.
Okay, so not the same.
That had international intergalactic bounty hunters in the Quad, which is
and that was based on a comic.
That one I don't remember being based on a comic. Because it was basically airing at about the same time as Dark Matter was.
I will tell you, and I have not seen or read the comic, but I've understood that Resident Alien is a much better comic than a TV show.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I love the show.
Yeah, I heard.
I really love the show. It is different, though. It is different.
Like totally an inversion. Veiled movie pitches of comics just make me sad that people think that comics are a fallback for their failures. I think that's part of it, but I also feel like it's a more achievable version of getting your story out that doesn't require as many people to buy in. So
yeah.
And also, some of the things that we've cited, these are people that have a love for comic books. You can feel if you're reading a book that is in with this paradigm, immediately if this is somebody that's just trying to get their work published.
Yeah.
So I think you can immediately feel the distinction. Yeah, it may have been intended as something else, but they have enough love and enough familiarity with the art form that they can succeed creatively in that. So, and then there's some properties, like it just amazes me nobody's ever tried to make a film of it. One thing I've always wondered was Suicide Squad. I always thought Suicide Squad was perfect for episodic television, especially now that we have this terrain where you can be hyper violent, and just the practicality of it. Actors being a pain in the ass, neck bomb.
Or you could just have
characters that aren't working,
stars.
Neck bomb.
Yeah, just have a ton of guest stars, like a rotating cast. It's we had.
It's like
had Matt Damon on,
since 1986 anyway. So.
What did you guys think of the trailer for the new one?
I thought it looked a lot of fun. It looks like a lot of fun, and it looks
great.
Looks like James Gunn fun, and I'm okay with that. Yeah,
I'm 100% on with that. It's James Gunn, so there's going to be some gore in it because it is rated R. But also, I mean, Kaiju Starro.
I know. I couldn't believe that.
Of all things, like speaking of things that we never thought would be
none of us saw that coming.
No,
none of us saw that coming.
They kept that under deep wraps. Yeah.
And Sylvester Stallone, they kept under wraps too.
Yeah.
Wait, what did he? I missed that. What did he?
He's voicing King Shark.
King Shark.
Oh, he's the voice. Got it.
Yeah.
I was very excited for Peter Capaldi, and he said nothing in the original trailer, and then they released a second part of it, and he said like 2 words or something, and I was like, oh, there it is. But yeah.
Well, also with this many people, don't get attached.
No, for sure.
Come the 15-minute mark of the film,
It's interesting, and when you have trailers like this where they show so much of the movie, to be sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff that goes unseen and that we're going to be surprised about in the movie theater. But you can kind of tell by the time they make it to the tropical island part of the film, there's much fewer of them than there are sort of in the introductory parts of the beginning.
And also, there might be some film footage that are baits and switches.
Oh,
exactly. Oh, they do that all the time.
Yeah. John Cena's part was kind of weird too. I didn't love. I don't know. I'm curious to see what he does. But David said they were trying to set up. Oh, I guess this is back to the a few seasons of Arrow, but the film took precedent. I didn't remember that, but I also didn't track Arrow as well. The new trailer, like I said, was really great. King Shark looks amazing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he'll be kissing or making out or dating Constantine, but that's a whole other thing.
That whole interaction with who kills who. That's right, James.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
It is a possible.
Spoilers. Sorry if you didn't read the comic that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Statute of limitations goes out after a couple decades. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of like statute of limitations and spoilers and whatever, did anybody see that new movie? Was it Zack Snyder's cut of?
Isn't that just the movie title itself? Just
Call me crazy. This may sound crazy to you, and you know how averse I am to material that comes out of DC Comics. But yeah, I did watch it.
I tried to watch it to be quite fully transparent and the full disclosure. I started it and I fell asleep twice.
I mean, it is only 4 hours long.
It wasn't the content though. It was your physical.
Sure.
With the both. All right.
I mean, I hadn't. Okay, let's just say this: I had not been drinking. I did.
What?
I know, surprising, right? I was very comfortable though, and I may have had a rough couple days prior. But either way, I really tried. I got the first part, how long the first part is, and then after that first part, I think he had just gotten back from visiting Aquaman or whatever. I trailed off, and then I came back for a second at some point. I think he was talking to Wonder Woman. I definitely saw the Wonder Woman bank terrorist moment. That was. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But I did catch some of the early stuff and then just,
And again, most of that material was in the theatrical cut.
Was the Wonder Woman bank terrorist thing?
It was, but it was a little bit more edited in the theatrical one. I think they cut out
everything was a bit more edited.
There was
that was my takeaway from what I did see, and I did see some other think pieces and read some stuff, but it seems like what's really crazy about the Snyder cut is how much Whedon came in, reshot, changed, and then they took and they threw out or they put away all of this great stuff that Snyder actually filmed, some of which was very Snydery and kind of like whatever, but other stuff was like pretty cool and great. And you're like, why did you reshoot this? Or why did you take that out and put something else in? Like, it just was very, anyway.
We'll get to it later, but there was one element that was in the theatrical cut that I really liked, it turns out, and which was not in Snyder, and we'll talk about it because again, most of the differences, apart from the length of the material, really come in the third, what we would call the third act, or in this case, at chapters 5 and 6. Do we need to get through plot? on this?
No, I mean the plot's the same. The plot is the same.
Okay, okay. Just asking.
Yeah.
Asking.
I mean, the way the parts are broken up, because it is like each act is 2 parts. They're 40 minutes apiece. So if you want to watch this sort of piecemeal, and you can watch a couple chapters at a time, and it's fine. Like and I do have to say, and this is just me, it went by pretty fast. It was a pretty fast 4 hours. Because I was enjoying it.
Yeah, my problem was because I had to see it. I watched the first 3 chapters before I logged on to work. Watched another chapter when I gave myself a self-enforced lunch break, and then completed it after I was done with work. That probably did go fast. I would have preferred to have watched it in one sitting with bathroom breaks.
Can I just share David's comment that reinforces my the plot is the same with more naps? Okay, case in point. Let me just put out a case in point. I did watch the Amazons fighting Steppenwolf. I did catch that. I actually enjoyed most of the fight, and I know some of that is obviously some of it's in the theatrical, whatever. Yeah, but there is one shot particularly. I think it's when she's shooting the arrow. And I felt like the Snyder Cut version of that went on for like 10 minutes. And I'm sitting there like, and this might be one of the moments where I started to fade. I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, there are some things. Diana's conversation with Victor the first time is like, oh my God. Point, get to it.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I was much more enthralled enthralled maybe too strong a word, but I was much more involved in the storyline than I was with the theatrical cut. And if you also might want to cite to Batman versus Superman, the extended version of that film is a far better film than the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I think we talked about that.
I mean, and that's like I'm saying, like far better. There's things that are throwaways in the theatrical cut where there's actually some meat to it, and it's. But also at the same token with Zack Snyder, if he can't make a 2.5-hour movie, that's a failing as well. Because commercial properties like this, with some exceptions like Endgame, which I think justifies its running time, should be within that sort of. They shouldn't be 3-course dinners. They should be sandwiches.
Well, I mean, Snyder has always been the type who he prefers epic, and sometimes the way he translates epic as long. I mean, I was one of those people. I'm not a dude bro, but I absolutely loved the movie he did with Browning.
Sucker Punch? No.
Sucker Punch. Okay. I loved Sucker Punch. And I know people hate it. I know it's such a divisive thing, but I thought it was brilliant. The thing is, though, he has an unrated version that's like an extra 20, 30 minutes long. And it drags a bit. I love that, though.
But I felt Bill's reaction like every time it comes up, just instinctively from what other people I know. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, Steve. I am.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely worth a shot to watch, but it is pure Zack Snyder, except for one thing, and I'm going to mention it. In a movie that's all about women, what is lacking, essentially, in Sucker Punch that is in full display in films such as 300, Batman v Superman for a bit, but very much so in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and that is man titties. Pecs. Zack Snyder loves pecs. He does. He loves them. Man greased pecs. Up, shiny, very big, meaty man pecs. And in fact, you see in the Snyder Cut probably 10 times as much man chest meat in this version than you would in the theatrical cut.
Chesticles.
Aquaman constantly tearing off his shirt at every scene that he's in. He's just slow motion tearing off that shirt, just like
Yeah.
And then of course you've got what's his name? You've got the bodybuilder that he threw in there to play Zeus. Huge pecs, just very focused camera angles on that. Anytime Superman shirtless, which of course, Henry Cavill, he's got to be shirtless in every movie. Full close up on those. But it's just there's a lot. There's a lot.
You did hit on something that I do think it was a bit much, and that's the slow motion. It got to the point where it took me out of the story with a lot of the flash bits. And it's a shame because there's times where it could be really effective, like that great little bit where Kal-El is not himself right after he's been rejuvenated. And there's that tiny little bit where he actually catches the Flash.
Yes.
And, that should be it. But that's when it should be used. Not with just the overabundance of that particular type of shot. It was a bit too much.
Yeah, and actually in that shot too, that flash shot where he's running around and Kal-El catches him and he turns his head. That was in the theatrical version too, and I love that.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite shots, and I'm glad that they kept it in this one. But speaking of the Flash, there was a lot more of the Flash in this one,
and a lot more Cyborg. Yep.
And a lot more Cyborg. And I enjoyed that. I liked getting the backstory because they had fuck all to do, excuse my French, in the theatrical version. They were barely in it.
Very happy. I think the biggest justice in this being released, right, is for Ray Fisher and Cyborg, because it is evident now that there was a real problem between Whedon and Ray Fisher, if not between Whedon and other people as well. And so the fact that this restores his footage, his performance, his story, his prominence, that is a huge justice for him and for that character. So I am thrilled that is the case.
And the thing is, it really is good. Like his portion is good. There's a lot more emotional impact to that. I mean, his whole character is supposed to be tragic.
When the Flash shows his father the acceptance letter, there was a lot of stuff there that there was no reason it couldn't have been in the theatrical cut to humanize some of these characters a bit more.
Yeah.
The one thing I did miss, though, and I thought this was really clever in the theatrical version, and we had nothing along those lines in the Snyder cut, was Steppenwolf's defeat, because he feared them for a split second, and that's when the parademons attacked him. I rewatched the third act after I watched the theatrical cut after I watched the Snyder cut, and that was the one thing that I thought, wow, that's clever, and it gives that character a pretty cool exit, and that one element, which isn't bad, one element out of everything that I did prefer from the theatrical version, and the Superman Flash race conversation.
Oh, right,
post credits. Yeah,
I do love that.
We got a much better post credits or mid credits. I don't want to get yelled at. If it's after the first credits, post credits to me, shut up. But
two things that I can already tell you, I think the theatrical version might have been better. One, definite. The other, maybe not. Color correction. So the theatrical did turn up the saturation compared to the Snyder's typical drab, very grayscaley, desaturated. So I definitely like the more vibrance, just as a preference. Just a preference. I think that it warms up both the tone and the visuals a little bit. But then the music. Did you guys catch that in the theatrical release, Danny Elfman did the music?
Ooh, I hate.
Well, right. And so the Hulkenborg, Tom Hulkenberg or Borg, I forgot how you say his name.
Junkie XL.
Junkie XL. Yeah, Junkie XL. I really, I wasn't sure. I kind of go back and forth a little bit, but there were definitely moments of the Snyder Cut soundtrack that I loved, including the little Icelandic chant sort of hymn to Aquaman, and sort of some of the really, Lisa Gerrard, Dead Can Dancy kind of, I don't even know how to describe that. Wailing Women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the only Junkie XL I could grab quick was the Elvis.
What is that album like?
Well, it's not an album. This is a single.
Single.
When they put the what year was this? So this would have been 2002. So they tried to capitalize on the Beatles one, and they had a similar Elvis Presley, and they did release A Little Less Conversation with Junkie XL remixing.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that.
So it actually is credited to Elvis versus Junkie XL.
Nice.
So,
but I like Tom Holkenborg a lot. I love
the only one I could grab quick.
There's other stuff up there. Mad Max Thunder Road, Fury Road.
Fury Road. Mad Max Thunder Road.
Mad Max Thunder Road. Yeah.
Just a lot of country licks, you know.
I was surprised. I didn't.
Park.
I didn't know that they were doing that was his original score, like that was a thing. So I really did enjoy that part. But the color correction, I think I prefer it to be a little more vibrant.
But yeah. And James actually looks like he kind of agrees about the slow motion impact, the issues with that. I like to think of because it is very much a Zack Snyder touch. Like that's a flare that they do, just like lens flares with what's his name, J.J. Abrams. You know, you're always, if you're going to get a J.J. Abrams, you know, directed film, there's going to be lens flares, you know, all over the place. Anything with Zack Snyder, you're going to have slow motion all over the place, and it's going to be and you know, whether it's a massively impactful action scene or it's just like, I don't know, a glass of water falling, you're going to get that slow motion. And it does kind of it does kind of pull out the running time a little bit.
You know what it does, Steve? It gives you time to take a nap. Because again, this is why I think I fell asleep. There were just moments of very quiet, like, you know, intense things, which might be fantastic character beats. I'm not saying that my napping or lack of attention was always justified. However, I know that I didn't fall asleep in the theatrical version, even though I probably saw that in the theater, so different experience. But still, that one kept me engaged more, I would say, than this. Not that it's better, but that it was a little more, you know, tightly edited. I mean, certainly tightly edited, but a little more, you know, and jokey. And again, that to me, that's a preference. And so I'm not judging necessarily even the Whedon versus Snyder as far as like which is the better tone. But what I will say, what blows my mind is that the studios had to chuck so much of Snyder's version when Whedon came in, and there's so much that you should have kept and you should have used.
Yeah, and I really, that's I think probably the most tragic part.
Also, at the same time, we have to keep in mind that there was $70 million that went towards this, and some of that footage may not have been usable.
Right.
So you have to keep that in mind as well. But, you know, just in terms of the sentimentality and, you know, him initially leaving Justice League because of the suicide of his daughter and the dedication at the end, I was like, oh, God damn it.
Well, you know, people may not know, Snyder came back and did all of his work after this whole thing at no cost. He didn't want any, like, he didn't get paid to finish the job. He wanted to just probably in many ways just finish the job, finish the work that he had started after he had suffered this incredible tragedy. And so for that alone, take all of the dude bros out, take all of the other bullshit that, you know, caused this to happen. But for that alone, I think it's important. And I'm really like thrilled that that Snyder could come back and finish that job. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's to be like, of all the corners of the internet that were really pushing for this for whatever reason, most of those reasons were not like, we really support you for the family tragedy that you had, and there was a lot of like other reasons, either we didn't hate or just, you know, anti-establishment kind of fervor. It's like, oh, Zack Snyder didn't, you know, this wasn't his vision. Well, I'm going to fight for his vision. I don't care what it is, but I'm going to fight with her. But I think that there really is, you know, for a director's cut, and this kind of like with the Donner cut of Superman 2, I think it was Superman 2. Like you have these a precedence there for a good director's cut version of a film. If the original film was not really that vision, and if you have the chance, if a director gets a chance to do that and say, this is the movie that I wanted, and I really want to put it out, I really want people to see it, because this is what I was really hoping to do, let them do it, because there's always a chance that it could be.
But at the same
great.
token, I have to say there are very few films where I think a director's cut will make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's very few films, and some of them are tragedies, like The Magnificent Ambersons with Orson Welles. I mean, that's a tragedy, and we'll never get that, because the footage just doesn't exist anymore. I don't want an avalanche of directors that either Alan Smithy the shit out, or the credit or whatever. I don't want an avalanche of these films now. This was a very specific type of situation, and I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad we got a glimpse into his vision. It's still flawed, just like the DC Extended Universe is flawed, but I was glad we were able to enjoy that. So.
There is one thing that I do have to say, and this kind of flies in the face of what I just said about like directors should be able to throw out their vision. I'm sorry, but 4:3, no, not my aspect ratio. I do not enjoy 4:3. I don't like it. I feel like I'm not getting the whole picture.
I'm more with Bill.
It didn't bother me one bit. It didn't bother me one bit.
Oh, I didn't sit there going like, this is awful, but I personally.
Is it because is it because it's of that particular aesthetic reason, or is it because it's just something you're used to?
It's that particular aesthetic reason. I was one of those people, and maybe it's because I was a pretentious kid, but as soon as I could get a letterbox version of anything, I would get it. And that was on the old 4:3 TV.
Well, let me tell you, kid. Watch a pan and scan version of something like That Touch of Mink. Oh. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah, this wasn't.
Well, because this wasn't pan and scan. This wasn't pan and scan. It was just the aspect ratio. Right. So it was filmed this way, so it wasn't.
So the Red Letter Media guys, if you're not familiar, look up Red Letter Media. They did a whole analysis of this, and they actually showed that for many of the scenes, you could have cropped the original footage because it's the same footage that was in the theatrical cut in a way that was 16:9 or whatever letterbox.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they decided that Snyder said no. We're going to go entirely with what I believe he filmed like IMAX style or an IMAX format, which is that 4:3 that you would see in an IMAX theater. And he's like, no, all the shots need to be to that instead of mixing it, because I feel like there's films out there. Like I know Wes Anderson's done this and some other filmmakers where they kind of play with that a bit and you go back and forth. Noah Hawley did it. I think
Blade Runner 2049 was like that.
Blade Runner, yes.
Had moments where you had IMAX style spectacle, and then the rest was
Batman. Christopher Nolan's Batman does that. No, for sure. So it's an interesting choice. I didn't have a problem with it. I just think it's a choice. You know,
I mean, 4 hours of it to me.
Yeah, I haven't watched the black and white version yet. I will eventually get to that.
It's the super desaturated version.
Yeah. That's the version
Brian will never the way down.
All hope is lost. That's the version.
I mean, what I and I haven't watched it either, but what I would hope for it would be that it had a same feel to it as, say, the Fury Road Chrome Edition or Logan's black and white version, because both of those had a very different feel to them when they were in black and white. There's a lot of contrast there that just look beautiful. The shadows and the light, were just great. It was really cool to watch. I don't know if 4 hours of this would be the same because I don't know if it was shot in a way where that would make sense because there's so much CGI.
But I'll eventually watch it because I'm curious.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings. Yeah. David mentions Lord of the Rings extended cuts are the gold standard. Yes. Lord of the Rings extended cuts are really the only way to watch those movies. Unfortunately, trying to watch all those movies in one go will put you to sleep and or give you some really weird dreams after. So, but yeah, that's another time where the director's cut actually makes, elevates the film and makes it better. I wouldn't say that for The Hobbit.
I also have some director's cuts. I'm like, why did they do this? Like Elektra, it's like what was, but also like there also was a time where it was nearly impossible for a studio film to lose money because of DVD sales. There was a window of about 5-6 years where that was the case. Even things that were duds like Adventures of Pluto Nash actually turned a profit because of home video.
Speaking of this era,
maybe that was part of that. Yeah.
Did you watch The Last Blockbuster, the documentary?
Oh yes, I loved it.
Oh my God.
I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it. It's on my list.
Anyone who ever wants to understand the film industry as far as its transition from theater only to home video, that era, that transition, this documentary explains all of the let's say successes and missteps that happened along that era, and it is a fascinating not deep dive, but certainly deep enough, and it explains the whole lifespan of Blockbuster as an entity, and the fact that there is still one more in Oregon, 3 hours from here. I found out 3.5 hours.
Oh, you've got to go. You've got to go.
It's not that I don't want to. It's just a win. But we've talked about it, and we do want to go there. Of course. Cool. But anyway, it's on. Was it Netflix? I think is that where it's on?
Yeah, which is so kind of. That literally is ironic.
That's like twisting the knife in
literal irony.
Years after you've killed the person, like pick them up and twist it in again.
The funny story. Spoiler: Netflix did not kill Blockbuster. That is a misunderstanding of the exact situation. Not that they didn't help, but they did not.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Another film along these lines. All Things Must Pass. Tower Records was not killed by Napster and streaming.
No,
it wasn't. So
no. So it's interesting. Having worked for an indie video store, I gleaned a lot of that history of VHS, which really, I think that probably helped, kill a lot of independent stores. DVDs actually, saved a lot of stores because they were ridiculously cheap compared to the VHS versions of the movies.
One thing I find very frustrating. I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't know you were finished.
Oh, no,
One thing I find very frustrating is there's a slew of movies about VHS out now, but they're so concentrated on horror. And I wish there was a different kind of perspective. Just the whole exercise video craze. I mean, that's a great film waiting to be made.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, like out of shape people were doing exercise videos. It's amazing. The only exercise video I ever got was football player Lyle Alzado, and he'd like yell at you, and it was like, I can't do this. I feel so small.
It's so funny that there's like this direct through line from that to the Peloton sort of model, right? Because it is not a new thing, and it is so like we've all had those trainers on video.
Yeah. I think we probably should save Falcon and Winter Soldier for another time, maybe when it wraps up. But that started, so people know.
It's good, fun.
Yep.
And it's shorter. It's only going to be a 6-week 6-week show, and they seem to be more of just chapters of a movie as opposed to WandaVision, which was definitely episode. But we can
talk about that down the road. But something that we did cite to earlier was probably the biggest news in comics in the industry was the news that Marvel was going to be leaving direct distribution from Diamond to Penguin Random House. And however you look at it, this is seismic.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the end of Diamond, but it's seismic.
It's not unexpected at all. Working, everybody's worked sort of in a corporate standpoint, but when you have a major failure, the first question that somebody asks is, how do we prevent this from happening again?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened last year with Diamond literally just shutting their doors for 3 months almost, for just a period of time that it was really unsustainable for a small niche industry. That every one of those major publishers, Image included, even though they haven't made any steps toward, yes, but DC and Marvel, the first thing that they're saying is, okay, where do we go to get somebody else? What's our contingency plan? Who else are we going with?
Yeah.
And DC tried it with 2. They ended up with 1. And Marvel's just sort of like, well, Diamond, we're cutting it out completely, and we're going to a proven major industry leader for book distribution that has fingers in stores that we don't have.
And amazing incentives like a new facility that they're opening specifically for this purpose in Maryland. And
was there any
history? Yeah.
Was there any discussion about like direct market vice bookstore distribution, or is that still maybe down the road a bit? Like that initial direct market gets it, and then later bookstores get it. Is that part of all this deal or no?
I don't think so.
No, I think it's the same. No. I mean, I think Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, I think Day and Date has basically been the practice. I mean, there's always like a couple of anomalies, like the Walmart 100 pagers, or a few graphic novels that are direct market only. But that's basically been the practice for quite some time.
So, I mean, that's the big threat that some people might have read into this is a distributor that normally deals with bookstores, and the fact that they are involved now and we're doing Day and Date, like you said, I think that was the direct market, like the threat to the direct market was the thing I think that kept this from ever happening in the past. So if that's not on the table currently, I bet you some retailers are sitting there going, I wonder how long it's going to now be before that is not the Day and Date is not provided.
Yeah. So I've kind of phased out. I didn't want to hear the regular loudmouths from retailing like Brian Hibbs, about how hard, and I just didn't want to listen to it. So I don't even know what the commentary is. My feeling is, though, if you're a sizable comic book store, again, there's smaller and bigger ones. If you're a sizable comic book store with a sizable audience and you don't already have a Random House account, then you weren't doing your job. Right.
Yeah. Well, and there's the different levels of discount now that exist with Diamond that won't exist with Random House when it comes to Marvel books. It's 50% discount across the board. And
I imagine, though, they will play with that when there's events and certain other things. I imagine they are going to play with that a lot. Yeah.
Possibly.
But, there are some interesting ramifications, one being Free Comic Book Day. What's the future of that if that was Diamond dominated?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of initiatives within, the comic book stores and direct market that were sort of like Diamond led, but is, a lot of that could just be because they were the only game in town. So if you're going to have an initiative, you have to have Diamond basically at the center of it. Now you've got Lunar, who's doing, as far as I understand, is doing pretty well with DC Books. In fact, talking to my LCS, he's extremely happy with it.
I'm not happy with him.
Well, I'm not happy with it. I think individual.
I was not happy with the whole Batman Fortnite thing. I'm not happy.
Wait, what happened with Batman Fortnite?
They were solicited, and it was like a 2-week FOC for the first issue. Yeah. It was like there and gone. And if you didn't see the email, you didn't have a chance to order it. What? And so
what happens?
Yeah, well, after being a customer for 11 years, I don't like hearing tough luck.
Exactly, and that's the. I think that's the.
Sorry, I don't.
That is interesting with them, and I think it's for the smaller customers now, because now I think they've really pivoted to working with stores because that's now their bread and butter. Because I've talked to my LCS guy, and he's extremely happy. He hasn't had any damages. He's had great deliveries. In fact, he usually gets his books a week early.
Yeah.
So I went in on a Saturday, and he's like, "Yeah, we got obviously we put our books out on Tuesday, but I've had my books for next Tuesday since like Monday this week. So
they can
from
still encounter penalties though for the early sale, right?
Oh yeah, you're not supposed to.
That's still in place.
They don't have secret shoppers. There's no secret shoppers. So I'm sure technically they could, but the point of sale system is most often provided by Diamond. Well, Diamond doesn't have access to those dates, so it doesn't really matter. I'm sure, some people could be penalized for it, and most stores, I think, are doing a good job of keeping that. Just in case, because they've had 20, 30 years of Diamond, randomly paying people to come into the store and rat them out. But that's a thing of the past right now. And, if DC were to start that up again, which I don't know if they would, it's still people buying their books. And I think things like for spoilers, I think things are spoiled 2 months in advance anyway now. So it doesn't really...
They always have been, if you were savvy,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's still surprises every once in a while, but...
We're jaded and cynical. Nothing surprises us.
Excuse me. I should have gone on mute. And now I went on mute when it didn't matter anymore.
Oh,
Getting older, folks. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't even start with that nonsense. Yeah.
Look how old I'm wearing. I'm wearing a unicolor shirt.
I was going to say, are we doing the whole what we're wearing? Because I feel
this is it. It's an orange shirt.
I've got in sort of like, just to kind of talk about the new movie that just came out yesterday. King Kong versus Godzilla. Here's a Totoro version.
I love that I can read it now. I am actually getting better at my katakana. I love it. Oh my god. So yeah, this is a curling shirt, and it's not for any specific purpose other than my team Charlando is they're a curling team. So yeah, and it's comfortable. It's a beautiful shirt. I love this. I can sleep in this. I can wear this anywhere. It's so nice. Oh.
This is an orange shirt. The shirt is orange, and you know what? If I turned around, you know what you'd see? Orange. And it's not even bright enough to be international orange if somehow I had a major realignment in my ideology and decided to go hunting. It's not bright enough, but it's orange, and that's what I'm
If
wearing.
you went walking at night, is it reflective enough, or is it gonna keep people from hitting you?
I think it's on the cusp. I think if I was walking at dusk, it would be fine.
Okay.
But I think if it was later than that, it would be problematic. Yeah.
You need those stripes. You need those reflective stripes to add to your shirt to help you.
In fact, you should wear them. You should add them to every shirt. It's a new fashion. We'll just have reflective strips on everything now.
Someone in this
It'll be just like
has one of those, and it freaks me out. Freaks me out. And not so bad. A shirt and a vest. Okay, so
no one will know.
No one will know.
Whoever listens or watches this.
Oh my god, David. Okay, first of all, I love that. And then second, are you flagging or are you just doing a Coco Montrose?
On the hanky code, orange would be everything. And no.
Was it Coco Montrose as no, that's Montero. So Coco Montrese?
Coco Montrese.
Yeah. If you're talking drug brother, you got the wrong person. You're throwing that out.
Oh, I love that callback though.
Yeah.
The orange. Oh.
But
if we were sticking to hanky code now, it's
okay. I'm good to know, because a lot of people know hanky code these days. It's sad. I don't want the hanky code to die, and I'm hoping that post-pandemic, when we get to the
it's
roaring
also like
20s,
one of those things I never want to be mainstream.
No, we don't mainstream
ever.
But I just don't want it to die. I think it's such an interesting niche, but yet very clear communication.
I can say I flag left.
Oh, there you go. You look orange, girl.
Look how orange it is. Look orange, girl. Yeah.
Lord.
Was
So
it the
who's
same
reading?
episode as the back rows?
Oh, it might be. So who's reading comics?
I actually flag
read.
right, folks. I'm sorry, I actually flag right.
Oh my god, this is like a roller coaster, Bill. You're changing your. Are you about to dab?
Just
I feel
in
like you're
both
about
pockets.
to dab.
No. Well, I mean, who hasn't? But no. I'm still a boy at heart. I just thought throw people off the scent with the whole daddy vibe that I'm exuding these days. So.
Yeah, the comics.
We are going way off the path in this episode, and I love it.
I tried to get you guys off the path last week when I was do you know, by the way, when I was watching that episode, I was in a bathtub, and it was so delightful to be in a bathtub watching you guys talk about the nerdiest thing that I have seen us talk about in forever, and chime in and sort of try to like throw these bombs, and nothing happened. I was so disappointed. Come on.
Yeah, I loved our last episode. It's so nerdy. So nerdy.
It was very well, you see, like, I hate the term nerd. I will never consider myself a nerd. And I go back to a very basic description. You know, a nerd, well, a geek wonders what it's like to have sex with a superhero. A nerd wonders what it's like to have sex.
Yeah.
So
it was very delightfully in the weeds. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And you know, if that causes somebody to seek out one of the books that we cited, great. You know, I love reading history regardless. You know, so
books about books about books about books about books.
Bookception. Speaking of books, oh my God, there's comics.
Okay, why don't we start off with our lucky charm as always, Steve? Steve, tell us about a current book that you're reading and digging.
So I haven't talked about this book in a while, and mostly because it tends to end up on the bottom of my pile because, you know, there's all these new number ones and these crazy stories and stuff that I have to check out when everybody recommends great things to me. But I finally caught up on Once and Future, which is these are the last three issues, 15, 16, and 17. This book is fantastic. I really do love it. Like, a lot of times when we don't talk about certain books for a while, it doesn't mean that we've stopped reading them necessarily. It just means that, hey, you know, there's so much that's going on out there. There's so many books. But I still keep up with this, and I loved it when it first came out. I think I talked about it when number 1 came out. It's such a cool concept. It's a lot of fun. It's Kieran Gillen. Of course, you can't say no to Kieran Gillen. He's wonderful. And Dan Mora with his art is fantastic. I mean, his art it's cartoony, it's dynamic, it's sexy. There's just so much there. There's so much fluidity in his artwork, and it just goes so well with the storyline. So for those of you who haven't read Once and Future, it's the story of a man, Duncan, who finds out from his grandmother, Bridget, that essentially they are part of a family that protects the United Kingdom, specifically England, from the stories and myths that exist throughout history. Because although they are stories and myths, they actually have real power to manipulate, destroy, or cause severe damage to the English countryside. And they use stories to manipulate reality around them as much as others use those same stories to also manipulate reality. So at this point, a lot has happened. Duncan has found his mother, Rose, who gave him up, basically, who gave him to her mother, Bridget, to raise, is still alive, and in fact has taken on the role of Nimue, from the King Arthur mythos. And Nimue's had so many different versions of her, but one of them, of course, was either a lover of Merlin, as the mother of Merlin, as all these other things. But she has manipulated her other son into becoming basically the reincarnation of King Arthur or Galahad, and there's just all sorts of craziness that's happening here. And at this point, it's switching back and forth quite a bit between sort of the Avalon sort of dimension that exists sort of just behind the veil in the UK, and of course the real world. And there's so much bleed that's happening. Right now they've brought in Beowulf. Beowulf exists, and the story now exists in reality. So people have died because of it. The Green Knight has made an appearance and has been part of the manipulation that the family is using to both save themselves and save England, but also, you know, create a situation that unfortunately one or more of them may not survive from. And Duncan's significant other, Rose, who is also essentially the librarian, if you would, like in the Buffyverse sort of style of the librarian or the Watcher, has been supporting him, but also finding out that there's a lot more going on, even at the government level. There's possibly a conspiracy with King Bors or Boris, who we might know exists currently as a person in England that may be trying very desperately to actually destroy the world. So there's a lot that's going on here, and it's crazy and wild and insane. There's a dragon that pops up in this, and a beautiful dragon actually, from the artwork. And I'll see if I can throw some of this on, just to give you an example of the artwork. But there's just some gorgeous colors here. And again, you know, the art from Dan Mora is just absolutely beautiful, but the colors themselves really lend a lot to the work. And of course, it's Tamara Bonvillain who does the colors on the series. And we know she's just had some amazing work throughout the years for a lot of Image books. So if you're not reading this, I really highly suggest you pick up some trades. You can still probably find them in single issues. I think other than the first couple of them, they're pretty affordable, probably cover price for the majority. Excuse me. But you can pick them up in trades. It's up to issue 17. I think 18 comes out in a couple of weeks. But it's a great book. Wonderful, crazy, wild. If you like mythology, if you like sort of English history and epics and stories, mixed in with sort of realistic fantasy, it's an awesome read. So once and future.
Cool. All right, let's go over to Brian. Brian, tell us about something you're reading that you're digging.
I had taken a little bit of a break from reading comics. So of course, when that happens, I have a whole stack of digital issues to read. And I was going to talk. I literally was very excited to talk about Hickman and the X books. And I was going to talk about Cable and, you know, bringing back the Old Man and the cool stuff that Hickman's doing with the world and all that stuff. And then I read Rorschach number 6 from our, I believe, mutually agreed upon, I know David at least, favorite writer Tom King, and I realized that there's just really no point. I mean, it's not that those other books aren't great, they're fun, they're awesome, but when you read Rorschach and anything else by Tom King, but specifically Rorschach right now, it just is, it's more important to talk about, I feel like. So to catch people up who are not reading this, it is in the Watchmen universe. It is set in sort of a modern 2020, 2021-ish era. So if you know the Watchmen universe, you're set up pretty well. If you don't know the Watchmen universe, there's a lot of analogies and sort of metaphorical stuff happening that's very relevant to today, and really almost more like last year, specifically with Trump, QAnon, people who believe in a cause, whether that cause is just or not, getting caught up in that cause. It's a lot of that in the guys and in the character, and dealing with sort of the persona of Rorschach. So I'm going to share one page here that I think is just gorgeous. Jorge Fornes is, an amazing illustrator, and this page is just so beautiful. I forgot I said that. So James,
we'll never forget.
Fucking kid.
I just saw that.
Stop. I don't even
You
remember.
might get your wish, Brian. Are you happy now?
You know, I read that issue. It's not necessarily that simple, but either way. All right. So what this issue is, so long story, just sum it up. There's an investigation going into the Rorschach coming back somehow magically, or some new person, and his assistant, and how they were trying to assassinate a political rival to the President Redford. Long story short, this is an issue that is exploring the letters that went back and forth between the person in the Rorschach costume, who is Will Myerson, who is the artist who wrote or drew and wrote Pontius Pilate, not Pontius Pilate. Is it Pontius? Not Pontius. The pirate, the pirate adventure sort of stuff, but also is based loosely around oh man, we talked about him.
Ditko,
thank you.
I wouldn't call it loosely.
Okay. Tightly around the Steve Ditko question, which again is sort of a predecessor, to Rorschach. So it is interestingly meta, and in many ways kind of ties into the characters. And this issue particularly talks, and there's like a brief moment where they reference other artists and other writers from that era, like Frank Miller is one. But this panel is beautiful because it just shows a letter from this young, sort of misguided teen who is really obsessed with Will Myerson's work, Laura. And that's on the left side. And then on the right side, you have a letter back from the Ditko-esque Will Myerson character. Kind of, they're having like this exchange of ideas that grows over the issue into this sort of, not love affair exactly, but certainly this burgeoning relationship where you can see the threads tying each other together, which is going to lead to the eventual activities that are in the first issue where the story starts. So I, first of all, as a fan of Tom King and Jorge Fornes and sort of the Watchmen world, this piece is so nicely complementary to the themes and the ideas put in that work by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, but also doesn't like do anything to really step on those toes. You get little callbacks like the Squid Invasion, the Redford, obviously. And if you're a fan of the TV show, there's even things that you'll again, like those aforementioned things that you'll pick up on. You'll go, oh yeah, okay, I know what that is. But what's really key to this issue is this exchange of ideas that can sort of lead to something more. And this idea that two people can get caught up in each other's lives, which is something is absolutely in society. Many of us have been through this, a relationship, whether it's sexual or not, just this sort of evolution of a relationship, about ideas, about sharing stories, about trying to like see the value in each other, and then what it can lead to. And so I think that's what this is kind of going towards, but also still keeping this idea of this Trump-esque or Reagan-esque Turley rival to Robert Redford or President Redford, and commenting a little bit on that political movement of the Trump era, and sort of maybe thematically touching on like the QAnon, how people are getting so worked up into the QAnon movement because of stories, because of relationships, because of whatever. So it's really beautiful. Art's just gorgeous. Story is interesting. It's not like it's heady, but it's not interesting. I think it's a little maybe on the side of the heady and not as much action and adventure. But if you're into comics that are not just, fisticuffs and superhero heroics and all that, this is so interesting and so good. I really hope it lands. I'm really not sure where it's like directly going. I'm a little nervous because Tom King sometimes lands it perfectly, and other times it's like, wait, what? What did you just what? Yeah, I don't know. I'm really digging this. Have you guys? I know this came out like last week or so. I mean, it's not super.
Yeah, it's in the next box, which I hope is here on Saturday.
But overall, we've talked about this series. I mean, I think Bill, you're reading this, right?
Up to 5, yeah. As soon as I get 6, I'll read 6.
Yeah. Mine's Mine is piled. Mine is in a particular stack. I'm basically waiting until it's done, and then I'll probably read the whole thing in one sitting.
Mm-hmm. We have a comment from James asking if we were reading the other history of the DC universe. We have talked about this with the schedule, and I know the issue just came out, and there was some hubbub online about basically firmly establishing Deathstroke as a pedo. We will definitely be talking about that. I really love the Mal Duncan Bumblebee issue, the second issue, because that's my Titans, the late 70s Disco Titans. That's mine.
Titans. Yeah.
And I just thought having the dual perspective in that book with I am really impressed with it, and we'll definitely be talking about issue 3 when that comes out. But we have talked about issue 1 and 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my first book that I'm going to talk about, and I had no idea that I missed reading the best single issue comic book of 2020 in 2020, and that is Second Coming, Only Begotten Son #1, written by Mark Russell. It's the same team as the first Second Coming miniseries. And the artists here are Richard Pace and Leonard Kirk. They do different segments of the stories depending upon where the character perspective is. Best way to describe this is a religious superhero comedy. This issue, oh my God, was this funny. This is peak Mark Russell satire. Peak. The two main characters of Second Coming are, at this point, somewhat reluctant roommates of a Superman analog known as Sunstar and the literal Jesus Christ. And what we have in this issue is the story of the planet that Sunset, the superhero, came from, which is called Zirconia. And the people there are awful. They're just as awful as the people on Earth. The Jor-El analog finds out that the planet is going to blow up, and it's going to blow up at 9:00, maybe 9:15 that same night. So the Council of Science people, they decide they're not going to tell anybody because there's no reason for panic. We're all dead anyway. Because, as he says, we live on a planet that's all fucking crystal. And I got to tell you, it certainly is the funniest story ever about a planet on its last day. I mean, it has to be. There can't be anything that matches this. And, so many times we revisit the Superman mythos, and it's supposed to tug at the heartstrings. This one, I'm dying because he knew somewhat in advance that he could get a spaceship to send their son. His wife's immediate thing is like, "That's what are you kidding? That's the fucking biggest spaceship you could find." I mean, there's so much funny stuff in this. Brian, I know you would love this. I know you would love this.
Need to get that yesterday because I love Mark Russell when he is doing anything religion adjacent.
Oh my God. But again, to revisit the Superman mythos and have so much fun with it. I mean, this is a word I never use, but I'm going to use it now. Delicious. Also, past guest Ed Cato has an illustration in the book again with Ahoy. They do have back material, and he's one of the contributors there. The second issue, and I believe this is coming out on a bi-monthly basis. First issue came out in December. Second issue came out in February. The second issue is a huge tonal shift and is completely Jesus centric. And with the Jesus story, he is finding out what contemporary life is like. He's surprised that there's so many Christians, and they're not really Christians. Let's face it. I mean, that's something we easily can go. And this is highlighted on his trip to Bible Safari, which is a profit squeezing amusement park that trades on his image. And It's again a different artistic swing, again courtesy of Richard Pace, and there's also at the end a very touching moment. There's a man whose wife has left him after a miscarriage, was unable to save their marriage, and really heartbreaking. He's dead set on committing suicide, and just the little heartbreaks, taking his cat and leaving it outside so it doesn't die inside, if nobody comes, and Jesus saves him, but he's also a bit of a dick about it too, by handcuffing the guy to his hand so he can't jump off. And that's like a twist that Mark Russell is so good at. Jesus gives a speech at Bible Safari, and everyone turns on him. Security's running after him. It's amazing. It's that Lowe song, "Come to Life." If you were born today, they'd have killed you by age 8. And man, I love this. And Brian, you especially, I think you're gonna really dig it.
I just pulled it up on my Comixology app, so I didn't see I don't know they've collected it yet, so you can still get the individual issues. But
yes, they did collect the first volume.
Okay,
and apparently there's a really funny intro by Patton Oswalt.
Oh, I gotta get that.
Yeah, so and that's in the collected edition.
Right,
apparently he was a really big fan of that. So
Russell, his stuff, I mean, we've talked about on the show. He's just my favorite satirical writer. And if anyone has not read his takes on the Bible and the Apocrypha, was it God is Disappointed in You? I think
God is Disappointed in You. I gave that to my dad for Christmas one year.
Read by James Urbaniak, which, by the way, if anyone is into cameos, James Urbaniak, voice of Dr. Venture and narrator for the God is Disappointed in You, his cameos are $30. Our friend Chris Cummins had somebody get him one, and they had him watch this. What was the video of the Billy Ocean?
Loverboy, yeah.
Loverboy.
Fucking Loverboy. Okay.
And he watched it and gave this 10-minute cameo, and it was $30. Like, that is the best. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry. Yes.
Okay, Steve, you're up. Tell us about a book you're reading that you're digging.
Well, I kind of wanted to, this is an honorable mention book, just to bring it up real quick, but Department of Truth, I know Brian was mentioning with Rorschach, there's sort of like the history of QAnon, the equivalent of the Watchmen universe QAnon version, and Department of Truth kind of plays with that, with the sort of real life version of QAnon, but then also the whole idea of urban myths mixed with conspiracy, mixed with, just crackpot ideas, actually manipulating and recreating reality. And in Department of Truth, it's getting to a point where there actually is, some background on this really interesting history of the fact that, Lee Harvey Oswald in this issue goes and finds out one of the original books telling the true history of the world. And it starts off with a conspiracy where the Catholic Church has actually moved ahead the calendar by 300 years so they could have a millennial celebration in the year 1000, where the Roman Empire hasn't been gone for hundreds upon hundreds of years, and it's, you can't remember it. No, it had actually just crumbled, and the church is asserting its power, and it's very interesting. Such a really cool thing. This book is by James Tinian IV, with very interesting art by Martin Simmons. But anyway, honorable mention, very cool. What I did want to talk about, though, was Proctor Valley Road, #1. What was that?
No, I'm just saying I'm waiting for this book. I'm really excited to read this. Yes.
I'm not going to spoil too much, but I think, Bill, reading this made me think of you.
Okay.
And for a couple reasons.
Is there a devastatingly handsome and charming 53-year-old in the mix there? Is that why?
No. Oh. But there's actually one very funny thing in here, and I'm just going to pull it up real quick because you will know exactly what it comes from. if you can read it. I want a gonk. He's all yours, sis. Anyway, so Proctor Valley Road. It's Grant Morrison writing with Alex Child, art by Naomi Franquez and Tamara Bonvillain again on colors. It's a very interesting period piece book. It takes place in 1970 in Chula Vista, California, and those are both very important for the narrative of this story. It centers around four girls who, about, I would say sort of like mid to, older teens, who are ostensibly in the first issue of the book trying to get money together so they can go see a Janis Joplin concert that costs all of $9. And man, that's crazy expensive, but we can get the cash together to go see Janis Joplin. And, the girls are doing 1970 things, that these kids can do. They're riding their bikes around, they're, mowing lawns, shoplifting, pretending to be hippies, all sorts of crazy things that's happening in 1970. There's a lot of great insults that are thrown at them, like "Hey, Manson girls," or whatever. That makes sense in the area, in the context of the era. Same thing with gonks. I would have thought by 1970 gonks would have been dead, but apparently not in fun fairs where this gonk appears. But the interesting thing about this is that it's not just a coming of age story of these four girls in California, in Southern California, in 1970. There's the background of the Vietnam War is very much a part of sort of the background conversations when they meet up with some older teen boys. And they all sort of decide to go out to a haunted area of the desert, on a particular road, Proctor Valley Road, to just sort of, do as teens do and be spooky. But this book takes a very interesting turn in that it is not just an interesting coming of age piece set against the background of the Vietnam War. It also contains a lot of supernatural and monstrous kind of things. So it's an interesting first issue, an interesting introduction to what's going on. But I think because of its very, and I don't know how much Grant Morrison knows about Southern California in 1970. Hopefully he did some research, or maybe that's what Alex Child is there to do for him. But it doesn't sound like a Grant Morrison book. But I know at some point we're going to get some interesting sort of truth behind the universe kind of stuff thrown at us and very meta stuff happening. Possibly, but we'll see. But I'm enjoying it for a first book. It did come out a couple weeks ago, and it is going to be monthly out of Boom Studios putting it out. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Okay. I see the time, so I'm just going to very much abbreviate what my second recommendation was. I'm all indie this week.
Yay!
Yeah. So my second recommendation is Stray Dogs from Image. And this is written by Tony Fleeks, and the artist, when I get over to where I wrote it down here, is Trish Forstner. And the elevator pitch for this is Lady and the Tramp meets Silence of the Lambs, or as Brian Bendis put it, The Secret Life of Pets meets Seven. And what you have in this book is you see her here. This is the main dog, Sophie. And you can also tell here with the art, it's a very Don Bluth style, if you remember that animation from the 80s and I guess into the 90s. It plays upon the notion that dogs have very short-term memory. And the storyline starts with Sophie going to the vet with who she calls her lady, her owner, just getting some kind of shots, and then immediately moves into a very different situation where she's all of a sudden a rescue dog, and she comes into this house where she is now one of 10 dogs. The pack is led by this, almost traditional hero type named Rusty. Dogs are all very different. My favorite is Isabel. So when you read the book, you'll understand why. And she gets used to this new life. All of a sudden, she's one of 10 and she's very scared. It doesn't look like such a bad life for the dogs because they live in a big house. They have a backyard where they can run and pee. And through the story, as she's getting used to this, again, she's still getting used to the situation, and her new owner, who they call the master, wraps her up in a scarf because she's shivering. And Sophie immediately has this flashback that the owner, murdered her lady with that scarf. And again, because there is the issue of short-term memory, she's not sure if this is real or not, or if it's just a partial memory. And she tells this to the other dogs, and most of them are like, "You're full of shit," and literally say that. There's cuss words in there. And at the end, Rusty starts to believe her, and he talks to Sophie, and then Sophie has no recollection of what she just said, and that's the cliffhanger where the story ends of the first issue. And the complexity of pack life and the mystery that is right there out of the gate. I thought it was a very promising first issue. It's going to be 5 issues from Image, and that's my quick take here. Stray Dogs. So, indie books from me.
No, it's interesting. I didn't know about that. I want to check that out now.
Yeah.
I thought this go to hell.
I thought this was a Steve book. Yeah, I thought this had more Steve written.
I knew nothing about this book, so this is news to me.
Okay, well, it's still in the stands. The second issue is out already.
Okay.
And again, with Proctor Valley Road and other history of the DC universe, I'm hoping to have those by Saturday. So by our clock, we dancing very close to the 90-minute mark, and when we get there, that's when we start wrapping up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him, and we do something similar. This is where we spotlight something that we think deserves a woof, and it might be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is both a comic book series as well as now a TV series. And I'm talking about Invincible by Robert Kirkman. And several other people, Ryan Otley, etc. It has been, a lot of people worked on this book. But it's been made into an animated series on Amazon Prime. First 3 episodes were out last Friday. The next episodes come out, I think, tomorrow. I believe it's going to be weekly.
6 episodes
on Fridays.
6 episodes. 6 episodes. Yeah.
Yep. But it is fantastic. It's a really interesting adaptation interpretation, and I had never read the comic, but I did have the first volume of the compendium, so I went and blasted through all 45 of those issues, 1,000 some pages worth. And I love it. I love the series. I love it now. I think getting that crash course binge reading, a third of the entirety of Invincible was great. And so now I have a point of comparison for the series. There's a lot of changes, but the important stuff is there. And some of the stuff they actually fixed from the comic because early 2000s indie comics, they're throwing out that's gay and that's R word and all sorts of stuff that you really don't now.
Just alone, if you want your mind blown, read the first 3 issues of Hit of what the hell, the Millar thing. Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass.
It'll knock you out. Yeah. But that's cool. And so you got the Compendium 1, and was that was a Humble Bundle? If I
it was a Humble Bundle a couple years ago.
Shoot, I wish I got this. I have a few issues of Invincible.
They are on sale.
Go ahead. Yeah,
they are on sale now on Comixology for half off.
That ain't the same. anyways. I do have a few issues of Invincible. I have the Marvel Team Up issue, which Steve wasn't aware of when we had the conversation. When Kirkman was writing that, when when the seas weren't as that turbulent for him at Marvel, and I actually have a few issues of Guardians of the Globe, the spin-off series.
Do you have Science Dog?
No, I have.
There were several spin-offs.
I have Brit.
Yeah.
I have the original. I think Brit precedes everything.
I think so.
And the first trade of Astounding Wolfman.
I had that before I sold it all.
Yep.
Yeah, so I do have some stuff within the. I guess what you could call like the Skybound universe. I guess, but I really do want to read it because I really enjoyed the first episode. I haven't gotten to 2 through 3, and I know 4 is going to air tomorrow. But I do want to look into that properly.
It's a lot of fun. I love the changes that they've made. And one other thing, really quick, because David's reminded, Nottingham #2 is out next week, so. Get it at your store if you
Number 1 is also a book that's in the box that I'm hoping to get on Saturday.
Oh, yay. I'm going to look in Norfolk when I go there for work. I'm going to see if I can find an LCS and maybe someone has it.
Oh, if I can put this out there to you guys and whoever, I can't find a copy locally of Black Hammer Visions #1. So if you do come across it, kind of tickle its ass over to the counter. I'm good for the dough.
Well, I'll look for that.
I always use that because in the 90s there was that Tickle Me Elmo craze, and I had a friend who was like, if you see Tickle Me Elmo, tickle his ass to the counter for me because my daughter's driving me crazy. So I've always done the tickle.
I will also put out the call if anyone gets Batman Fortnite, which evidently is now hard to come by.
Well, no. It was just the solicitations were weird, and I was able to order Batman 2 through 6. I'm just gonna have to go to a store to get one.
I will look as well.
Happy.
Oh, yeah. And then also, that's good to know, the second printing of Nottingham #1, it will be April 28th. So that will also probably sell out, but I will do my best to make sure I get that.
Okay. But no, Brian, I know we have something earmarked for you when I get those issues. You get you get to partake in whatever skins or whatever that stuff is that's going to be the bonus stuff. So
it is so dumb.
It's
and
all yours.
I am so happy that you're doing that, but it is so dumb.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, why don't you tell us your wolf of the week?
So I was going to talk about David Tobey's Nottingham, but Steve beat me to the punch. So I will just talk about another of our friend Dave Abersole, who is putting out a new series through Kickstarter called Tommy Dakota. It is a queer Western romance series that he and Vinny Rico, who also worked on Dash, are doing together. And his Kickstarter is not live. So if you go to this website, which actually I have the link for as well, you can click follow. And so you can then be notified once it actually is live and you can back it. And of course, we all love queer comics. We all love Western romance, the art from Vinny Rico. I mean, this just one beautiful shot of I assume the two characters in the romance, one of which is Tommy Dakota, is beautiful. And I have some insider info that I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss, but I do know that we will be possibly bringing him on and Vinny as well when those are getting close to coming out as a Kickstarter campaign to discuss even more. And I will just put this out there may or may not be a theme song that is associated with said project that is in the works. So I'm very excited for Dave. I love him to death, and I love Vinny. They do these happy hours occasionally with the Dash crew that if you catch them on like a Friday, they're tons of fun. But yeah, we're very excited for Tommy Dakota. I can't wait for more queer comics.
Will he have a Jackie Daytona cameo?
Oh my God.
All right. For my wolf of the week, I initially was going to do one thing, and then I decided at the last second to do something else. I know Steve is known for his television principally his British television kind of takes the mantles for his Wolf of the Week very often. And I'm kind of getting in that boat with the Rock documentary, but it's something I enjoy. And initially I was going to recommend Tina, and I still do, which is airing on HBO Max, which is the Tina Turner documentary. And again, as someone who is in ill health and in her 80s, she is treating this as basically her farewell as a public persona, and it's a very touching documentary. And I decided the last second not to really talk about that. And I'm going to talk about a 2007 documentary, which is available for free on Amazon Prime. And it's called Nick Drake Under Review. If you're unfamiliar with Nick Drake, he was a singer-songwriter in England in the late 60s, early 70s. He only put 3 albums out during his lifetime. None of them were successful within his lifetime. He later gained more notoriety after he had passed away. The song Pink Moon was used prominently in a Volkswagen commercial, and that alone brought one of his albums to gold status. He was somebody that was actually kind of born to the purple, was, a public school kid, which in England is private school. So he was upper crust, and you really didn't have too many rock personalities that were from that at that time. And he never found his niche. His songs are very almost, acoustic dominated, very pastoral, very beautiful songs. And there's no known video footage of him. There's about, I think someone did a count of maybe 170 pictures of him that are believed to exist, and how they were able to still put a documentary together without the benefit of, usually what you would have on hand, to put a visual point across. It was very well done. The company that does these videos, Chrome Dreams. Sorry, I butchered that initially. I was going to say Chrome something else. Chrome Dreams. They're very low budget, but they're very well done, very effective narrators. And for somebody who might be going into this not knowing anything about Nick Drake's music, it's a fantastic introduction. This is beautiful, beautiful music, which needs to be heard. So that's my Wolf of the Week, Nick Drake Under Review, and it's available free streaming on Amazon Prime right now. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through iTunes, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, and catching us on many of the other podcasting platforms. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. If you're listening to the audio version, we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.